Before we get started with this episode, I have a few requests. Download the Talk Music Talk app. It is free for iPhone and Android, wherever you get your apps, or you can subscribe on iTunes or Google Play. Once you do, just leave a rating and or review in the store to help spread the word about the podcast. Second, share this episode on social media if you enjoy it. Facebook, Twitter, however you like to do it. It will help spread the word about the podcast. And finally, I am in the process of acquiring advertisers and sponsors, and I need your help. Just take a quick survey on my website at talkmusictalk.com/survey. Should take you 30 seconds or less, and it will be greatly appreciated. And now for today's show. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Talk Music Talk with Boyce. I am Boyce, and this is my podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 117. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people who are connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds. Musicians, singers, songwriters, music journalists, and music therapists. And on episode 117, I had the pleasure of speaking to Carina Zachary. She is the lead vocalist of Husbandry, a Brooklyn four-piece band that I discovered on Bandcamp. They have a phenomenal full-length debut called Fera that came out late last year. It is post-hardcore if you care about labels and genres, which we talk about in the conversation. We also talk about her musical influences that shaped her singing growing up, conquering her stage fright when she was younger, how she has honed her talents. We talk about her goal to be in a band, including her many band experiences in different genres prior to being in Husbandry and what she has learned from all those experiences. We talk about how Husbandry came to be. We talk about the making of their music, including the first EP and the phenomenal Fera. We also talk about how it is for her being an Afro-Caribbean woman in the metal genre, and also how her family has not always understood the music that she does. After the conversation, you will hear two songs from Fera, Grab, Twist, Pull, and with Codeine, right after the conversation with Carina Zachary. Here it is for your pleasure. Enjoy. On your Facebook page for Husbandry.
Right.
It says Fugazi meets Aaliyah. Elaborate, explain.
So,
I like that combination.
Yeah. So I think we were playing a show in Rhode Island, at a venue called Dusk. And somebody said something about us. They were like, oh, after we played, he said something like, oh, this is insane. This is like, Rihanna meets Fugazi. I think that's what he said. And the guys and I started laughing about it, and they all know that I'm like a super Aaliyah fan.
Okay.
Like, Aaliyah has had a huge impact in my life from the time I was really young. And so he was like, my guitarist was like, we should market ourselves like that. Fugazi meets Aaliyah, because it kind of it encompasses a lot of what we're about and our diverse tastes in music and the different spectrums that each of us bring to the band.
Okay. And it's intriguing to hear.
Yeah.
If you want to know more. Like, if you hadn't heard
like,
you.
What?
Like, I heard this band. They sound like Fugazi and Aaliyah. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm here. So, what was it about Aaliyah that you loved?
I think that she just had the perfect combination of mystique, talent. She was classy as shit. And she was just such a gentle human being. Yeah. And it's interesting that she had such a gentle personality, yet she was so fierce when it came to performing, and her style was just edgy. Yeah. And it seems like she was always at the forefront of trends and just individuality. She was a big advocate. And just the music that she created with Missy and Timbaland, they were doing something that was so different at the time. It was kind of like they were on their own little wave. Yeah. And you were either on that wave or you got left behind. And I love that. I love that whole innovation kind of approach to what she did.
And it's so ahead of its time. It still sounds current today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This new R&B. Yeah, I mean, that's...
I say it all the time, like, if Aaliyah were alive today, like, half of these little starlets would be nothing. Yeah. Yeah, they would not be doing shit, yeah.
When'd you get into her?
My dad, we had this thing where we'd always go to the movies together. My parents separated when I was pretty young. And so we always, like, going to the movies was our thing. And I had heard a few of Aaliyah's songs before, like, Back and Forth.
Yeah.
And, but it wasn't until we went to see Romeo Must Die that I was like, holy crap, like, this girl kicks ass. And then she came out with the Try Again video. I was just like, wow. And at the time, I've been singing since I was about 5. And during that time is when I started experimenting with writing. And I started getting more active about music. Because up until then, I had really bad stage fright. Yeah. And so around that time, like 11, 12, 13, that's when I started trying to get more involved in like musicals. And I started taking dance, everything I could get my hands on to get over that fright. And I don't know, something about Aaliyah was just very motivating. I was like, yo, I want to be kick-ass like that. Like, yeah. And one of the first songs I did in a talent show was an Aaliyah song.
Which one?
I did More Than a Woman.
Okay. That may be my favorite.
That video song is just...
I can play a song like 10 times.
Yeah. That whole album is just awesome. Yeah. Like, it's very eclectic, and it when you listen to it, it sounds futuristic. It really does. Yeah. Still. And it's hard to sort of just say, like, oh, like, that's neo soul, that's R&B, because it pulls from so many different things that it's like she can do anything. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see where her career would have went. For sure. Yeah. So were you conscious? You were conscious that you had the stage fright and all that. So how did you decide, like, well, this thing will help me get over it? It was kind of like baby steps, and I think I just naturally fell into a crowd of people who were just creative, and I knew that music is what I wanted to do. So I was like, all right, if I really want to do this, I gotta take the steps that need to be taken. And luckily, like, I went to middle schools and a high school that still had, options and provided, programs for people like me. Okay. So in middle school, I took choir, I had after school dance, I took art classes. By the time I got to high school, I was able to take a theater class and do a few musicals. They had, like, their annual talent show. And also, I was in an AP English class, and sometime during the second semester, I think, the teacher started doing like open mic Fridays, where people could just go in front of the classroom and tell stories, poetry. And that's how I started. Okay. I started writing poetry and gauging people's reactions. And then eventually I got the courage to transform those poems into songs. Okay. And were you, like, just coming up with your vocal melodies, or did you play an instrument? I did not. So it was all, at first I didn't really have anyone to play with. So I would just, come up with melodies and write full songs with, like, no music, just using vocal melodies. And then eventually I was like, all right, I need to learn an instrument. And that's when my interest in guitar started happening. And it's been something that I've had, like, on and off relationship with guitar. At first, I started playing just for myself and because I needed a vehicle to carry these songs through. But I've always known that vocals is my strong suit. Yeah. So the guitar would just be like a songwriting thing. If I could compare it to anything, guitar was like the Michelle to my Destiny's Child, you know?
Everyone dogs Michelle.
I love you, girl, but we all know.
Yes.
So I always made it a mission to...
I haven't heard it put like that before. Poor Michelle.
but you gotta admire, like, she did the damn thing, you know?
Yes.
She took her role and she rode with it.
Yes. You know, and I saw Destiny's Child, their, I guess that was their quote unquote farewell tour. And like each one of them would do their own solo thing.
Right.
Michelle did a gospel song. She actually, like, a standing O. It was like the most amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, like, after they, you know, broke up or whatever, like, she made the transition to gospel music. So more power to her, yo.
She was quite special.
Honestly, like, I have love for Beyonce, but I have always felt that Kelly, she has such a great voice.
Yeah, she does.
I'd even say that she has a better voice than Beyonce.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the tone and, like, just what she does vocally so much more than Beyonce.
Yeah. And I think
Beyonce as an entertainer is just, she's incredible. But Kelly is a diamond.
Yeah. And you know, it's something you can see how, if they're with the right material, to really let her shine. Like, Beyonce gets great material.
Yeah, of course.
Kelly got the great material.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's gotten that.
Yeah.
That's in service to her voice yet.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you do this show.
Right.
You're learning guitar.
I was learning guitar, and, you know, I had
Self-taught?
friends. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I basically just started, like, my whole process was I'd come up with lyrics and melodies, and then I'd just go on the guitar and find whatever sounds I heard in my head. So I was making a lot of friends in high school, and a lot of my friends were in bands and, you know, doing creative stuff. And at first, it took me a while to really consider being in a band. At first, I was just kind of doing, like, R&B stuff, kind of singer-songwriter stuff, and eventually I had this epiphany, and I was like, you know what? I should be in a band.
Yeah.
I can do that. I kept going to my friends' shows, and I kept going to local shows and just, you know, absorbing everything. And one day I was like, you know what? I can do that. So I'm going to work towards that.
So you need like finding a band that needed someone, or are you putting together your own band?
So after high school, a couple of years after high school, I had this friend who I knew from high school, and he was always involved in music in one way or another. And eventually we linked up, and he told me about this project that he had going on, which was like he was blending like electronic music with heavy, like, metal sounds. And so we started talking about it, and then eventually we agreed to work on a song together. And it wasn't really a serious project, you know. I was kind of like testing the waters because I'd never been in a band before. And that was a really fun project. It didn't really go anywhere, but it did kind of reconnect us, me and that friend of mine. And eventually that led to us being in the first band that I was actually a part of. So the band that we were in, it was a band called The Perfect Wake. And we had a drummer, guitarist, bassist, and myself. And we ended up playing a few shows, and we ended up recording a full album. And then it got scrapped. So we had all these plans or whatever. We were going to release it, whatever, do the whole thing. And then it just kind of fell apart. My guitarist, he was a really talented artist and designer. Like he did like computer graphics, graphic design, all of that. He was at SVA. And, you know, it just got to the point where, like, he realized he needed to focus on that, you know, on school. And I respected that. I did. But at the same time, I was like, damn, like this is like my first, the first real band that I'm in, and I was just fiending to get that material out there. I wanted to make it real, and I felt that by putting out the album, it was gonna just fulfill a part of myself that I had been wanting to for a long time.
And was the music? This was metal, electronic.
This was Okay. So this was it was kind of like a power pop, electronic, pop rock kind of outfit. Yeah. So it wasn't too heavy. It wasn't too heavy. It was definitely like clean vocals. But I'll even now, like, I'll listen back to it and I'm like, I was nowhere near where I'm at now, in terms of like,
kind of blessed it didn't come out.
Yeah. It's just interesting to like see how much you've grown as not only as a singer, but just the way you perceive music. And so, yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a something that I'm very fond of, that band, because it really like introduced me to, I don't know, it's just everything, songwriting and being able to sort of create a relationship with other people, and finding a balance, like musically, like working out how to work with other people.
Okay, yeah.
So that was really a really interesting experience. And then I went through a few years of just writing on my own and trying to figure out what the next move was. And I was in a few other projects after that, one of which was like a blues-oriented project. And that was really fun just because I've always been a fan of the blues. And there's just something that I connect with. There's something that when I listen to that kind of music, it just transports me to that era. And just, I've always had like such a connection with the lyricism and a lot of the darkness that accompanies blues music. And it's a feeling to me. It's like it's a state of being. And I've always gravitated towards that. So it also allowed me to sort of explore songwriting to that kind of music. Okay. So that was cool.
Because you would have to change lyrically what you're doing.
And I was also going through a really tough time.
Where was this at?
I was when I was in that project, I was maybe like 20. I'm 29 now, so I was probably like 23.
Okay. And where were you living?
I was in the Bronx.
Okay.
And I had lost a friend. A friend of mine had overdosed on drugs, and there were just a lot of things that I was kind of like coping with, just trying to figure out where my life was heading, and I don't know, just a lot of unresolved issues. Yeah. And there was like a lot of drinking, like whiskey and it was just all the perfect kind of storm, for the kind of music that I was making at that time. And that was also very short-lived, but it's something that I hope to go back to at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to explore more folk, blues, soul sounds. I'm very fascinated by that. And I've grown up in New York my whole life. I was born in California, but I've been in New York since I was about 5.
Okay.
But I've always been drawn to, the South and just places outside of New York.
Okay.
And I feel like music is like the perfect thing to sort of visit places that you've never been to before, because it takes you elsewhere,
Yeah. And sitting in the Bronx.
Yeah. It's really funny, like, especially to like me and a lot of my friends from back in the Bronx. Like, we were born not born, but raised there, and it's it's a really difficult thing to put into words because it has its own vibe, But the fact that like we could be living in the Bronx and just listening to something that comes from halfway around the world and being fans of it. Like, that's the power of music. Like, it's such a universal thing. You don't have to like live the life that person is describing in the song to know where it's coming from and for it to make a connection with it. So, yeah.
And after you finished with the blues project.
Right. So I had also been in another project. I had a friend who lived in the Heights, Washington Heights. And at first we were sort of like an acoustic act. And then we had a few other friends who migrated in and out. And so we went from like acoustic to electric. And I had a really great friendship with the guitarist. His name is Anthony. And we really, I feel like we really explored different music avenues. Okay. And also like that friendship was really important to me at that time and still now. But at that time, because we supported each other, you know, like it sometimes the universe knows exactly when to like throw people your way, because you could be going through some really difficult shit and the universe will put someone on your path that will help you come, you know, get to the other side. And I think that's what we provided for each other during that time. And actually one of the songs, the first song on our album, on Husbandry's album, is about that friend of mine. Because we both had bouts of depression and we'd always kind of like help each other out whenever we were facing that. And that's what that song is about. Okay. It's about sort of knowing that you're prone to going into these dark places, but also like fighting to get out of it.
And always to get out of that.
Like the main line in the chorus is I swim against the current. So we always kind of helped each other, like pushed each other to get out of our own abyss.
Did you realize it at the time or reflection?
Reflection. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely valued his friendship at that time, but I didn't realize how big of an impact that friendship was going to have on me until, years later.
When you're out of it.
Yeah. So once that project died down, I kind of stopped making music for a while. So I needed to just regroup and like figure out what I was going to do. And
out of frustration you stopped?
Out of frustration. Yeah, out of frustration. That kind of fell apart, but it was more like personal issues, and I don't know. I was like, you know what? Maybe the band thing is not going to work out. It can be a difficult thing because you're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with different creative minds, and it can be pretty explosive, sometimes. Not saying that we had any full blown like fights or anything like that, but sometimes you need to disconnect,
Had that been in your nature to be able to work in a creative setting with people like that? Like, or do you have to learn how to be able to accommodate different personalities?
I think, honestly, through joining Husbandry, I realized that things either click or they don't. Yeah. And when they do click, you feel it. Like, you know it from the beginning. And that's kind of what happened with these guys. I had stopped making music for a while, and then obviously I couldn't stay away for long.
How long was this period away?
It was like a year. Okay. Like I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even writing. I was like, screw this.
But you were missing it.
Oh, of course. It's like when something is such an integral part of you, it's hard to stay away. Like I always say, like I found myself through music, because when nothing makes sense in the world and around you, like music has always been the one thing that keeps me centered, that gives me a sense of purpose. And I don't know, like it's always there for you.
Yeah.
It's always there for you. I think it was Jim Morrison who has that line, music is your only friend until the end.
Yes.
And that's so true.
It's constant.
Oh, yeah. It's unconditional. It's unconditional. Yeah.
If everyone could be like music.
Yeah. That's true.
How'd you get out of that period?
So I was like, all right, I miss performing. Like, performing it really is a drug, you know, like it's for me, it's about making a connection with people. And I feel like living in New York, especially, everything is so fast and everything is so fleeting, you know, and people don't even stop to look each other in the eye and like have a conversation. And, you know, that's just the way this place is set up and, you know, our jobs and our daily lives, like it's a grind. So for me, playing shows, that's the little window of opportunity that I feel like I get to make human connections with people. And so, you know, it's, and also I feel like it's the one kind of setting where like you can just be who you are at your core, you know, and not get judged for it, you know, like if people, and that feeling gets amplified when you see people connecting to it, you know, so it's kind of like reaching your higher self, like coming in touch with your higher self. It's a very powerful experience. So it's hard to stay away from it for a long time. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be a mess without this. So I might as well try again. So I was looking on Craigslist, right? Cause that was my one option. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll like scour the internets. So I ended up going on Craigslist and I was like, all right, let's start small. Let's look for a guitarist. Okay. You know, keep it simple, you know, just get a guitarist to help you out with these songs. And I came across an ad and I opened it and it was a 3-piece band looking for a vocalist. And I read like their influences and I was like, I'm really into this kind of music. It's almost too perfect that we have, you know, a lot of the same influences. And
what were some of those?
So they listed like the Mars Volta, Deftones. They might have put Tool in there. I don't know, just a plethora of bands, Glassjaw, a plethora of bands that I'm really into and that really helped kind of shape my adolescent years. And I don't know, it's like one of those things. I was like that little thrill of like, oh, like maybe you can be in a band. Came creeping back. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'll shoot them an email, but I'm not going to count on it. And this is probably not what I really want to do right now, but whatever. I'll send an email. So I responded to the ad and I sent them like clips of like videos that I had and like an old MySpace, profile or some crap. And I continued my search for my guitarist. So I don't know, I think maybe a few months passed by and I didn't really think about it. I was just like, oh, like whatever. Maybe they didn't like what they heard. I'm not the right fit, so whatever. So I continued on my quest and so I'm back on Craigslist about 3 months later and I see the same guys. Well, I didn't know at the time that it was the same band posting. But I was like, once I read like the thing, I was like, it reminded me of them. And I was like, okay, this, maybe it's them again, but whatever. I'll try it again. Let me hit them up again.
Never know.
So then I get an email the next day and I think it was Jordan, the guitarist. And he's like, we responded to you like months ago and we thought you changed your mind about, you know, auditioning. And I was like, I never got that email. And I'm like, okay. So we started talking and they had material ready to go. Like they, at that point, had been playing as an instrumental band around Brooklyn. So they were, you know, serious about playing shows and stuff. And they had tried a bunch of different singers, and it just hadn't worked out at that point. So I asked them to send over a track so I could write to before I came to see the audition, because I was like, let me get a sense of what these guys are about. So I listened to the stuff, and I decided to just write to it. And I ended up doing like a little bootleg recording of the song with vocals in my room. And I was like, all right, I'm going to submit this as my audition.
Okay.
And because I was like, all right, I'm not going to let these guys get away. I'm going to make damn sure that they like what they hear. So I sent them the track, and they were like, okay, cool. Like, we want you to come in and we'll play the song, you know, and see like what it's like then and there. And we scheduled a practice, and the rest is history.
Okay. And it clicked like when you met them?
Oh, yeah. From the beginning. Like, it was just kind of an automatic thing. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's one of those things that I saw like how skilled they were and how serious they were about doing something with music, you know, like they weren't bullshitting.
Yeah.
Like from the first couple of weeks, like I started practicing with them and just writing nonstop to the music that they had done. And I was like, all right, I got to put my batteries on. Like, this is the real deal. Like, they're really serious. So I gotta up my game. And it was the first time that I'd been in a project where like I felt like I wasn't the only one who was really trying to dedicate myself to something, you know? Up until then, I feel like all the other bands that I'd been in, people kind of took it as like a hobby, you know? And with these guys, like, it was really like all or nothing from like the beginning. So I really admired that. And still now, like, I think of like how challenging their music was to me and still is. Like, they come up with stuff now, and I'm just like, the first 2 weeks of like listening to anything new they give me, I'm like, how am I supposed to write to this? Like, what am I doing? But somehow, you know, it always just clicks, you know? And yeah, so we started writing. We started playing shows. Our first show was actually at Knitting Factory.
Okay. This is 2012?
This was was it 2012? I joined in 2013.
Okay.
September of 2013 I joined. And I think maybe about a month later we got our first show. And it was a total accident because we weren't planning on playing, but we had been sharing this space with a band called Drella.
Okay.
And they're a 3-piece all chick group from Queens. And they're fucking badass. Like, they're like heavy. Like, they're like Black Sabbath, you know, and like they're just fucking kick ass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were supposed to play a show, and I think they had to drop out. I'm not sure why, but they hit us up and they were like, "Oh, last minute, like, do you guys want to do this show?" And we were like, "Okay." I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, let's do it. So we ended up playing, and it was awesome. It was a great experience.
How was that first show?
It was great. It was really great. It was really fun. I forget who else. I know we played with a band called Alma Mia, and there was a decent amount of people there, and the venue was nice. The sound was great.
Yeah.
So it was cool to just kind of reveal what we'd been doing, you know, for the first time.
Was it a hardcore bill?
It was it wasn't a hardcore bill. It was like heavy bands, but not a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Like that band Alma Mia actually has a lot of like Latin influences. So there were like trippy things happening, you know, throughout the whole night. So it was cool. It was very versatile bill.
So you were regularly listening to, or this is what called post-hardcore?
Yeah,
I hate titles.
Me too.
Labels.
Like it's so hard, especially like as someone like I am so ADD when it comes to music. Like I just love everything, and so it's hard. It's really hard, like putting a label on stuff. So, I mean, I'm really familiar with a lot of the music that the guys listen to.
Yeah.
A lot of it being post-hardcore stuff.
And the difference between post-hardcore and hardcore, what would that be?
Honestly, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this, but I want to say that there's a lot more singing in post-hardcore.
Okay. As opposed to
I feel like hardcore music is a lot more aggressive, especially like what hardcore means now. But I mean, even back then, like it was very brutal. Like 80s hardcore, 90s hardcore. Like it's just, yeah, it's very aggressive.
So more the screaming vocals,
very male dominated. Yeah, it's just it's more screaming, more aggressive.
Well,
in some cases, more violent. But yeah, I don't know.
And post is more, I guess, melodic.
I think it's more melodically driven.
And you find more women.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need a lot more in general. We need a lot more women in rock music.
Why aren't there more in the scene?
I don't know.
I mean, in the audience than
I mean, there's a lot of like there are so many great bands out. I think the times that we're living in right now, like it's such a great time for women in music because it's just more widely visible. It's more visible. That's what it is. And there are so many great bands out right now that you know have women either playing an instrument or you know doing lead vocals. But it is kind of weird, you know. Like we've done little tours and like we've played all over Brooklyn, and it kind of it's pretty consistent. Like the fact that there are way more dudes than there are you know girls. But you know, with everything, eventually, I think it'll come to a point where like people don't have to introduce a band by saying, you know, female fronted band. It'll just be like, oh, this great fucking band, you know?
And she happens to not be a man.
Yeah, like who gives a shit about, you know, what all of those things I feel are secondary, you know. It doesn't matter what you look like. And that's one thing that really drove me to being in a band. Like when you're, you know, a Afro-Caribbean kid growing up in the Bronx, like that's not the first thing that comes to mind, you know, like my family, they've opened up a lot more now that they see me pursuing this as an adult, but when I was like growing up and trying to, you know, do the band thing and just it just does not register. They're like, what is this crap? Why are you into it? Where do you get this from? Because nobody in your family listens to this shit. Like, what's going on with you? But yeah, it's like I've always wanted to drive home the idea that you can really be whoever the fuck you want to be. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, what's expected of you. I've always been the kind of person that, if anything, I take it on as a challenge. I love doing things that isn't expected of me. Yeah.
And probably if more people had that attitude, you would see more women in it. Yeah. Or women who don't fit, or anybody who doesn't fit the traditional scene.
Traditional, Especially when I was like growing up, when I was younger, trying to pursue the band thing. Like I didn't see girls who looked like me. You know, there were all these like skinny white chicks with like colored hair, you know, bangs covering their eyes, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I look like, but I'm gonna bring it.
Make my own lane.
Exactly. Yeah.
So before the Fera, am I saying it right? Yeah. So before that, but you had like other music, you said, right?
We had So we recorded an EP.
Mm-hmm.
I think we released it in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a 4-song EP, mm-hmm. and we recorded that at Thump Studios in Greenpoint. And it's called Make Room for Waves. So that was, we took like the 4 songs that we felt best represented us.
Yeah.
And we banged them out in a weekend. And we released that
mm-hmm. before
the full length.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was when did the process start for the full length?
The full length, we released it August of 2016, but we had recorded it the year before. Mm-hmm. So in 2015, most of 2015 was spent writing for that album and planning out and figuring out what the heck we were going to do with it and where we were going to record it. And we ended up recording that with John Markson at The Gallery, I believe is the name of the studio. And he's great. Mm-hmm. We met him. We ended up doing a last-minute show at the studio at Webster Hall.
Okay.
And we opened up for a band called Self-Defense Family. And John has worked with, and I believe is good friends with Patrick, who sings in the band. Mm-hmm. And he ended up coming out that night to watch that band. And he ended up catching us.
Okay.
As he walked in, he ended up catching us. And so we got to talking, and we were able to speak to Patrick as well for a little while after the show. And it's just something that kind of happened naturally. Like, we found out John had been doing a lot of the self-defense mm-hmm. stuff. And I think they were in town recording that week. And John was pretty enthusiastic about us as a band and what he saw and heard, and quickly became the right option for us to record with. And it was a really great experience. Like, I think of it, and I don't think we could have done that with anybody else because he was very invested in the music and in just having us bring the best parts of ourselves to make this album. To the point where, like, we extended, like, the amount of days that we were supposed to do recording, and he didn't even charge us because he wanted to perfect it. Yeah. And there's the last song he even jumped on towards the end. Like, so he even did vocals on it, and it wasn't just about recording and getting these songs out, but we had some really great talks, and it was, it was a really amazing experience. Yeah.
What did you all talk about in terms of how you want the album to sound, the feel of it?
Well, we knew we wanted to be heavy. We wanted it to be heavy, but we also wanted to keep the integrity of, like, the vocals and, like, melody and soul. So I in terms of the vocals, I really wanted to keep an open mind, and I think I went into the studio with that. I wanted to try different things, and because a lot of the songs I had written a certain way, and then once we went to record them, John would be like, why don't you try this like this? Yeah. And I'm like, I never would have thought of that, but I'll give it a try. Yeah. And 9 out of 10 times, I would just be blown away.
Which is what a good producer should do.
Yeah. So I got to experiment with different styles of singing. And like for nature versus nurture, I had never really used my voice in that way, in that kind of like yelling, kind of punk rock way. I'd never done that before, and it was such a treat to experiment with that. And also, these songs they really challenged me as a vocalist, because I kind of pushed my vocals to a place that I didn't really think I could go.
Okay.
And throughout writing, there were some parts of some songs where, like, I would write and I had to, like, train myself to reach the notes that I was trying to accomplish for the actual recordings. So it was definitely a learning process. It was very, very interesting.
To push yourself, is that what? Vocal exercises or like?
Honestly, we would just practice the crap out of everything. Okay. There were even times where like, even the guys would be like, well, why don't you just sing it lower? Like, we know you can do it lower. And I'd be like, no, I wrote it that way. I heard it that way. I'm going to get there, damn it. I'm going to get there. So for me, I think the way that I operate is like, if I practice it enough and I figure out what feels comfortable in order to get to what I'm trying to reach, then eventually it just becomes automatic and I'm able to do it, effortlessly. But it does take some time sometimes to get to that point. But I mean, I would probably benefit from like taking vocal lessons because I've never taken a class. Like I've been in like, I've been in like choir, things like that, but actually sitting and taking a vocal lesson I've never done. Okay. I've just picked up on like different techniques by listening to the people that I love. So when I was really getting into singing, like Christina Aguilera was like, I was listening to Nina Simone. I was listening to Fiona Apple. Like I've always been a fan of female vocalists who are able to explore different ranges, who kind of sound like what they don't look like. Okay. So like Nina Simone has this very like androgynous voice. The first time I ever heard her, I was like, I don't even know what this person looks like because it's such an otherworldly voice that I can't even process what the hell's going on right now. I feel it in my bones, but I don't even know what's going on right now. And, so I've always been a fan of really just interesting voices, I guess. And I wanted to sort of explore that within myself. I wanted to find something that made me feel like I had a unique voice. Okay.
Because there's such a power to your voice and a clarity to it. Yeah. Yeah. On record and live. Because I saw you perform.
I think that
a couple nights ago.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out. That was awesome. I was like, that is what's up. It was
a great show. The audience was into it.
That was really fun. I didn't know what to expect, because I was like, well, it's a Wednesday night, but I know both of these bands are fucking great. So I hope people come out. And it was a good time.
Yeah, you had a nice sized crowd too.
Yeah, it was fun. I love St. Vitus. I love playing there. I love going to shows there. Any chance I get to go there, I go. But I think that a lot of, like you mentioned, like the clarity. Yeah. So I think that's something I picked up from doing theater. Okay. When you do theater, you have to enunciate everything, and there has to be a force behind what's coming out of your mouth. So you have to make sure to like breathe and sing from like your diaphragm. Like it's very physical. It's a very physical kind of thing, because especially making this kind of music, it's so loud and there's so many intricate things going on. If you want to be heard, you have to put everything into it. Okay. So that's kind of like how I approach it. Sometimes like after we play, like the day after we play, I'll feel sore from like all over, and I'm like, I didn't do shit. Like I feel like I exercised, and I'm like, okay.
Every muscle in your body from singing.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like I don't think about it while I'm doing it, but I try to put everything into it.
Okay. And talk about Fera comes with a book. Yeah, talk about that. Yes. You don't see that often.
Yeah. So we had been playing around with ideas. We wanted to release it on vinyl. That was our primary goal, but money constraints and time constraints wouldn't allow for it, especially for our first release. So
and people should know vinyl is expensive.
Yeah.
And you got to like plan.
It's a whole process. Oh yeah, it's a whole process. But yeah, we're fans of vinyl, and that was kind of like the first thing we thought of. But we started working with Aqualam, which is it's a label based in Brooklyn, and they specialize in releasing music in the form of books. So one of the first things that they showed us when we met up with them, because we had been looking for labels to release this on, and so we ended up meeting with them. They expressed interest. We ended up meeting with them. They brought these books with them of past work and other bands that they'd done releases for, and we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, this is really cool. Like, we've never seen anything like this. And I love books. Like, who doesn't love books, you know? And I don't know, I thought it was such a cool idea. I instantly, like, envisioned, like, someone having, like, our little book, you know, on their coffee table. Like, it's a physical thing. That's something that I loved about buying albums when I was younger. The whole process of, like, you know, opening it up and, like, flipping through the book, like that. You're making, like, a physical connection with this music. Yeah. So we thought it was a great idea. And Arnau, the bassist, he's a graphic designer. So he designed the cover and all the artwork that's in it. And that was what we thought was really cool. Like, the label pretty much gave control to us on what subject matter to put in the book, and we had pretty much full control over that. Nice. So it was cool to, you know, be a part of, like, kind of like releasing what we wanted to represent us as a band. Okay. So it's a cool option, and it also includes, you know, the download link. So you have the code on the back of the book. You can download it onto your phone. You can download the album onto your phone or the computer, and it's really easy. So people who aren't into CDs, you know, you can
still get the book.
Exactly.
On Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And you still get that visual, tactile experience.
Exactly. And something you keep with you forever, you know? I like that idea. Yeah. Like, years down the line, like, oh, look at my little husbandry book. Yeah, I think it's cute.
So what's next? Future plans, goals for the band?
So we want to go on tour. We've been writing some new stuff, so hopefully we'll get more material out there as well. But for now we just want to focus on bringing the live show, you know, to as many places as we can. We're also in the middle of working on a video. Okay. That we're going to be releasing. So more on that in a few.
Okay. And you already have I forget the rest of Capricornian.
So
what's the full title?
So Long Capricornian Crone.
Okay.
So that was our first video. The first video we released, and that was really fun to make. It was a very, like, do-it-yourself project, and Arnau, the bassist, he enlisted his roommate, Thane, to help us get this thing done. And we weren't really sure what we were doing at first, and eventually things fell into place, and we got the studio space thanks to Arnau's girlfriend. She has a friend who's an artist, and she, thank God, helped us. She let us use her space, and we did a lot of like green screen stuff and just close up shots. We wanted to do something that was simple but effective and stimulating, like visually stimulating, and that's what they did. Between Arnau and Thane, they, you know, just worked their artistic magic on that.
It looks great.
It was
look DIY.
Yeah, once we saw the final product, I was like, this is really beautiful. It's so pretty. The colors and, like, that whole underwater kind of effect is just, it was really cool. Yeah.
And I'm going to have you shout out the band.
My homies. This one's for my homies. It's Andrew on drums, Andrew Gottlieb on drums, Jordan Usatch on guitar, and Arnau Bosc on bass.
Okay. And graphics.
And graphics, yeah, and anything. Yeah. He's the creative mind for all that stuff. Yeah.
And best place people to keep up online with you?
You guys can either follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We're Husbandry NY, and Facebook, if you just Google, whatever, you can find us as just Husbandry. And then our website is husbandryny.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can find all the music on there, the EP, the full length. It'll show you where we're playing, the book, the shirts. We got tote bags, yo. Like, we got all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Tons of swag.
We got a little bit of everything for everyone. Yeah. So, yeah, reach out to us. We're very, very friendly. We love talking to everybody.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And I will put all that in the show notes for people.
Yeah.
This was wonderful. The album is amazing.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah,
I could go on. I talk a lot.
This is great.
So anytime I get to, just get it all out there, it's always fun.
Sure. Thank you so much.
That was a good experience. Thank you.
I wish the best for you and the band.
Thank you.
Up for grabs, for the taking, like Goya's noon. Don't care for class. It's in your nature to wag your tongue and point a dirty finger in my face. But I'm asking for it, provocation. So let the unit burn in this place between them lands. To yourself, head to yourself. When all the world is so hide behind a screen of lies and wrong. Your demons are roamed. A pill to swallow, take a bite. Slither on, face what you become. A coward dressed and gentleman with the clothes. I'll pray to the fools you take out. To yourself, head to yourself.
And there you have it, 2 from Husbandry's Fera album with Codeine and Grab, Twist, Pull, kicking it off. Great conversation with Carina Zachary. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed their music. Make sure you check out the entire album, Fera, at husbandryny.bandcamp.com. I will put that in the show notes in case you missed it. I am online in several places, several ways. TalkMusicTalk.com for more podcast info. Also, I have a personal website, which is thisisboyce.com for information on my novels and my music. And if you are on Instagram or Twitter, follow me there at thisisboyce. Boyce is spelled B-O-I-C-E. Don't forget your call to action. Make sure you download the TMT app. It is free for iPhone and Android, wherever you get your apps, or you can subscribe on iTunes or Google Play. And especially if you are on iTunes, please leave a rating and or review to help grow the TMT audience. You will also find the podcast on Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and many other places. I have a back catalog suggestion for you that goes perfectly with this episode with Carina Zachary, episode 88 with Lena Dawes. She is a journalist, music cultural critic, and the author of the book, What Are You Doing Here? Subtitled, A Black Woman's Life and Liberation in Heavy Metal. Perfect to listen to right after this conversation. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.